Hey, welcome to week 3 of our discussion on Rediscover Church. Week 3 means we just read chapter 3, and our groups are meeting and discussing that. And I'm glad you're able to join us online. You will find comment in the comment section on the YouTube page. You'll find a link to a Google Doc that has all of our discussion questions on it, so you can answer the same questions that we're answering in a group setting. And I hope you're able to do that and you find that helpful as we walk through this together as a church. There's power in gathering together. Think about all the change that happened in America in the 1960s because people gathered as Martin Luther King went around and gathered and rallied people to make change, and civil rights came to be on the forefront of our country because of people gathering. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to be in Vienna. It was a stopover on the way home from having spent a few days in Sarajevo doing some disaster recovery, and we went into Vienna to get some authentic German schnitzel. My buddy Bill and Bert and I, we went in, and while we were on the way from the schnitzel place to a place to get some coffee, we saw this crowd of people gathering, and we decided probably the best thing to do is for us to avoid that crowd. So when we got down to the coffee shop, and we asked the barrister, hey, what's going on down there? There was an anti-American protest rally, something that our government had done, and they weren't happy, and they were rallying to protest against the Americans. And the people gathering got our attention. Same thing's happening now, right? People, when we begin to see a crowd of people gathering in the park or in the parking lot or somewhere, it gets our attention. Hey, what's going on over there? What's that? And so we still see the value in gathering. And what church is people assembled in one place to gather for worship. And there's something about gathering together that's not like anything else. Y'all know I love UK football, and have a wonderful daughter who has season tickets and likes to hang out with her dad. And I go all I can, but I had to miss probably one of the biggest games at Kroger Field this year was a Florida game, and I just couldn't go. I had a funeral to do, and so she took somebody else. Kelly went with her, and I'm watching at home, and as exciting as the game was, it's always exciting when you beat Florida, and they're texting pictures and this and that, and I was excited in the living room and all that stuff, but there was just something missing about not being there. Same thing happens in churches, right? We've learned during the pandemic that while we can put our worship service online, it's just not the same as being together, about assembling in one place. And this whole chapter is about us gathering and why the church should gather. But it also led me to the question, when people begin to gather in parking lots in a park and we see a crowd of people gathering, we begin to think to ourselves, what's going on there? Why are all those people there? When there's, downtown Russellville, there's a group of people in the square, you wonder, hey, what are they there for? And I wondered, though, when was the last time that we've actually thought that about any church on Sunday morning? Hey, what's going on in there? Is God up to something in there? And if we as believers don't have that question, then how do we expect those who are non-believers to drive by our churches and see all the cars and say, hey, I wonder what's going on in there? So while we gather, we also need to pay attention that we need to do things in our building that when lost people, unchurched people come in, de-churched people come in, they know that there's something going on in there that's good. And while we gather together, it's a lot better than doing it alone. One of the things that virtual church, if that's even a correct term, has taught us is that virtual church has allowed us to worship independently and individually. And the church was never meant to be that way. When we look at Acts chapter 2 and we see all the characteristics of what going on in Acts chapter 2, there's a lot about the church gathering and being community and being together, and there's nothing about them being by themselves. So church membership and Christianity requires us to be in the church. Going to church won't make you a Christian, but being a Christian means you ought to be in church, worshiping together with other believers. And he ends this chapter about the call of the church and embassy, a representation of heaven here on earth. And if that was happening in our churches, wouldn't that if God was showing up and we were actually a representation of heaven, Would that not be attractional to lost people? That there's something going on in that building that I want to be a part of. The Spirit of God is there. Hey, just some food for thought as we just kind of wrap up week 3, chapter 3. Hey, I hope you are enjoying the study. Remember to go to the link, the comment, and follow the link to the discussion questions. And hey, we'll see you again next week. Thanks for watching.